The mess hall of Outpost Zenith fell silent the moment Sergeant Alina Cross stepped through the sliding doors. It wasn't her presence that caused the sudden hush. The human officer had earned respect among the multi-species garrison over the past 8 months. It was what followed behind her that made every alien present freeze mid-bite. 2 Vraxian cubs padded into the room on 4 powerful legs, their obsidian scales catching the overhead lights like polished armor. Kor, the larger of the 2, had crimson markings along his spine that identified him as a hunting-class predator. Ven, smaller but no less intimidating, bore the silver-tipped claws of a tracker lineage. Both were barely 6 months old, yet already the size of earth wolves, with rows of crystalline teeth that could shear through starship hull plating. The Vraxian ambassador, Thexlar, rose from his seat so quickly his chair clattered backward. Sergeant Cross, his translator, vocalized his chittering clicks with barely controlled alarm. You cannot, this is highly irregular. Alina walked calmly to the food dispensers, the cubs trotting obediently at her heels. She grabbed a tray, loaded it with the protein-heavy rations she'd grown accustomed to, and turned to face the room. "They're my team," she said simply, as if announcing the weather. "Your team." A Quilarian engineer dropped her utensil, her 3 eye stalks swiveling in disbelief. "Sergeant, those are apex predators. Vraxian young are not domesticated companions. They're smart, loyal, and learning fast," Alina interrupted, settling at an empty table. Kor and Ven immediately flanked her, sitting on their haunches with an almost military precision. Stay. Good boys." The cubs' tails swished once in acknowledgement. Thexlar approached cautiously, his mandibles clicking in what Alina had learned was Vraxian confusion. "This is impossible. Our young are instinct-driven until their 3rd molting. They follow only pack hierarchy established through dominance displays. You are not Vraxian. You are prey species in build. By what sorcery have you achieved this?" Alina broke off a piece of her protein bar and tossed it to Kor, who caught it mid-air with a satisfying snap. "No sorcery. Just consistency, boundaries, and positive reinforcement." She looked up at the ambassador, her brown eyes steady. "Same way my species trained wolves into dogs about 15,000 years ago." A murmur rippled through the mess hall. The concept was apparently novel. Wolves. A Centaurian medic's translator converted his question. "I have read of these in human historical archives. Apex predators of your homeworld, yes? You befriended them?" "More like we formed a partnership," Alina explained, scratching Ven behind his auditory ridge. The cub's eyes half closed in contentment, a low rumble emanating from his chest that definitely wasn't a growl. Early humans figured out that if you showed wolves you weren't a threat, shared your food, and worked together, both species benefited. We helped them hunt. They helped us survive. Eventually they became dogs, loyal, protective, part of the family. Thexlar's scales rippled, a sign of deep disturbance. But these cubs were abandoned when their colony ship crashed. Their parents died in the impact. Vraxian protocol states we must handle such situations with termination. Cubs without pack structure become dangerous, uncontrollable. Or, Alina said, her voice taking on an edge, they become loyal to whoever shows them kindness. She stood, and both Kor and Ven rose with her, attentive. "When I found them in the wreckage, they were scared, hungry, and alone. Just like any kid would be, regardless of species. So I fed them, kept them warm, taught them that some behaviors get rewards others don't. Set boundaries, gave them structure." She demonstrated with a hand signal. Both cubs immediately dropped into a crouch position. Another signal and they stood. A third and they moved to her left side in perfect formation. "Humans don't give up on kids," Alina continued. "Not ours, not anybody else's. These 2 have been following me for 3 weeks now. They sleep outside my quarters. They've learned 15 commands. They've even started helping with patrol duties. Their senses are way better than our scanning equipment." A Renthian security officer, his translator barely keeping up with his excited chirps, leaned forward. "Sergeant Cross, are you suggesting that predator species can be integrated into military operations through human socialization techniques?" Alina smiled. "I'm suggesting that predator and partner aren't mutually exclusive. Humans learned that lesson early in our history. Maybe it's time the rest of the galaxy caught up." Thexlar stood silent for a long moment, his optical sensors fixed on the cubs. Finally he spoke. "This will require documentation, extensive study, if what you claim is replicable." He paused. You understand what you're proposing? Fraxians have abandoned young for centuries based on the assumption they cannot be socialized. If you're correct, if this human method works, you'll change our entire culture. Good, Alina said firmly. Because Kor and Ven deserve better than being written off because everyone assumed the worst about them. She knelt down, and both cubs immediately pressed against her sides, their rumbling purrs filling the quiet mess hall. They're not monsters. They're just kids who needed someone to believe in them. She looked up at the assembled aliens, many of whom were still staring in disbelief. That's what humans do. We find the supposedly impossible, the supposedly dangerous, and we ask, what if? We asked that about wolves, about fire, about the stars themselves, and now I'm asking it about these two. Kor nudged her hand with his snout and she laughed, producing 2 more protein bars from her pocket. All right, team, chow time. But then we've got perimeter checks at 1400 hours. We've got work to do. As she fed her unlikely squad, conversation slowly resumed around the mess hall. But the stares remained, mixed with something new. Not fear, not disbelief, but the first glimmers of wonder. Because if there was one thing the galaxy was learning about humans, it was this. They had an unnerving habit of turning predators into family, obstacles into opportunities, and impossibilities into just another Tuesday. Sergeant Alina Cross stood, her team falling into formation beside her, and walked out of the mess hall with the quiet confidence of someone who had just rewritten the rules. Behind her, Thexelar watched them go, his translator picking up his soft whisper, "Humanity, Fagangya."